How are we coded? We're coded to respond to fear. We're coded to respond to the fear of missing out or loss aversion, reciprocation theory, confirmation bias. If we can understand perception conditioning and coding, which isn't that tough, honestly, we can really level up the way we relate to other people.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Shine a Light. This is Christine Miles, your host, and I am here today with Jake Stahl. And I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about Jake, and then we'll get into the conversation. Welcome, Jake.
Thank you, Christine. It's a true honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are the CEO and founder of Orchestrate. We'll talk more about that. With over 30 years of experience in training and training over 12,000 professionals across 47 states and 6 countries. Not a small feat, by the way. Very impressive stat.
Thank you.
You say that most people get ignored not because they're bad at what they do, but because they're forgettable in how they show up. Amen. Yeah. And you're the guy people call when they're tired of their team getting ghosted, which we do, right? Talked over or losing deals they should have won. You're also the creator of The Mind Mechanic and the host of the Lead Gen Reboot podcast, where you dissect the psychology of first impressions, buying signals, and the exact moment influence is lost and how to get it back. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And just so you know, we recently changed the name of the podcast to Own the Room to reflect the title of the new book that I put out. So it's the Own the Room podcast. We're on Spotify and Apple.
Own the Room. I got to tell you, I like that better.
Thank you. I do.
That's a better title, Jake. Where was that whenever you created that? Well, all we do is improve, right?
Yeah.
The
other one was forgettable.
Well, here's the thing. I think this is an important part for business owners and people to realize is that it is an evolution, just like we are as people, that we understand ourselves and who we are and how to talk about what we do. And it's an evolution to a better place. It's not always where we start is where we finish, is it? It's not going to work that way.
Absolutely.
So I love Own the Room.
Thank you.
And let's just start with that. You have your book.
Yep.
Tell us about the book.
So my book just got launched on Amazon. It's called Own the Room: How to Communicate to be Seen, Heard, and Respected.
Wow.
And the premise behind it, Christine, is that everybody, in my opinion, has 2 profiles. There's the one they put on LinkedIn that's all shiny and the hair combed and it looks all beautiful.
Yeah.
But then there's another profile behind that person's eyes that makes all the decisions. It responds to fear, it responds to loss and happiness and everything else. And my firm opinion and the premise of the book is that we always talk to the shiny version of the person.
Yeah.
We always talk to their LinkedIn profile. My book teaches you how to understand the second profile, the decision maker, and how to speak directly to it so that people remember who you are and so that when you walk into a room, it knows you're coming.
And so this reminds me, and I've shared before, I started my career, my first job out of college was I was a home-based family therapist at 22. So
wow.
I don't why they hired. I mean, it's a longer story. And I knew I had strengths, but I look back and I'm mortified. I had the mayor of Lancaster County on my caseload at one point. I'm like, they must have thought this is ridiculous. And they were so respectful of me. But what I remember having knocked on people's doors at such an early age was what I already knew, but it just hit me in the face. I would walk up the driveway or to the porch and I'd be here, bah, 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 screaming and yelling, and the real story. Knock, knock, knock. Everybody's like, hi, how are you? It didn't matter what race, what age, what socioeconomic. The reality is we're not who we show in the world because we have human qualities in life and conflicts and difficulties, and we don't show people that. So that was a blatant example of how I saw that in my early career. So just before we go back to more of your beginnings, so when you you said talk to the decision maker, that
Correct.
Second, tell us more.
Yeah. So we all send signals, Christine, whether it's us looking down or the way we walk into a room or the cadence of our voice, we all send signals. And 80% of the time, we are sending these signals non-verbally.
Yeah.
And so if we're missing 80% of the conversation, we're not actually in the conversation. So each time we send a signal, that triggers something in someone else. And I'll give you a great example. I was on a conference call with a couple of prospective clients the other day. man and a woman, lovely people. And the woman came on and it was so cool. I'd never seen this before. It
Okay.
looked like her glasses and earrings were made in the same factory. They
Interesting.
matched.
Okay.
It was so cool. So I complimented her. I said, God, those earrings and those glasses are really cool. Immediately, her hand went to her wedding ring and started turning it, pulling it
Wow.
off, putting it
Huh.
back on. So I had triggered something in her.
Yeah.
Maybe it was her telling me unconsciously she's married or herself she's married. Whatever it wasn't great.
Okay.
So I had to reframe her back to where we were. But my premise and the premise of the book, Christine, is oftentimes we miss this. Somebody's in a
watching the
meeting.
reaction, you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
So if somebody in a meeting starts tapping their pencil or they lean back in a chair, it means something. And if we don't address that, we're missing a huge piece. They may already be out of the conversation by that point.
Right, right. So let me make sure I get you. So when you talk about that, you're talking what the reaction the other person has to you and your own behavior and so, that you meant that as a compliment.
Absolutely.
Her subconscious went on some level, I don't know what this means. And her body responded with, that nonverbal behavior. There's body language is powerful. It's so much of
huge
communication, right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we talk about how to bring them back to the conversation, how to reframe things, and then how to anchor the conversation so that we're all on the same page. How do we make it their idea then? Because I am a firm believer, and I've taught this for 30 years, you don't ever convince anybody. They just automatically take it as their own idea.
You're speaking my language here. People are much more, this is why listening matters to me. Like this is the power of influence when you understand someone, then however you're reading them. And I think listening is so much more than just the words that are said. It's all the things you're talking about. That most people miss. The story's in the room if you're just looking at the right things. But when you don't know what you're looking for, it's really hard to see them, isn't it?
It is. And the book really talks about the fact that it doesn't take a PhD to do this.
No.
If somebody sits back in their chair, address it. Hey, Christine, something I said just kind of hit weird. Tell me what you were just thinking.
Okay. So you name it. You name it.
Yes.
So wait,
name it to tame it.
Take us back to the earring lady, because here's what I'm thinking. I did sexual harassment awareness training for years in my career, and there's nothing about that that's sexually harassing, by the way. There's nothing about what just happened other than she maybe felt uncomfortable, and that's and for whatever reason. So because I worry about this because men are worried about giving women compliments, and I think it's not the point.
Right.
It's not the problem. It isn't the problem. It's our perception. So how did you, because a lot of problems could be prevented if people just addressed it. Like you're probably going to tell me you addressed it. So tell us how you dealt with that.
So the great thing about this woman was she did a lot of research on my company before they got on the call with me. So she knew a lot about my background, what my company did, my origin story.
Okay.
So when I saw the discomfort, I said, so thank you for doing all the research you did. Let's talk about where you found this and what you liked. And immediately the hand went away from the wedding ring, things settled back down, and we were back on cue.
Yeah.
But my firm believer, Christine, is most of us as salespeople, we just push through it.
Absolutely. Well, how about humans? How about let's just talk in our personal life? Like how many times do we have a conversation with somebody else except rather than the person that we have? And so we just create more problems by avoiding than we do addressing. But I can see how in a sales situation, this is a game changer because this is what people actually really want. Someone who has the courage to say things in a way that makes me feel more understood, which is really what you're getting at, right?
Yes. Yes. You're making them feel seen and heard. And by doing that, you actually become respected by doing that. You know, there's no trickery in the book. There's no sales scripts. There's no hoi polloi. It's just good old fashioned. Notice what's in front of you, acknowledge it, and move forward.
So with the woman that you had the call with, it sounds like the way you reframed, she took it in a personal realm.
Yes.
potentially. That was your
Yep.
perception of it, right? You didn't ask her, so
Correct.
you were
No.
noticing. So, but you were paying attention. So you're listening to the behavior. I call that
Yep.
listening with your eyes. You see
Great.
that maybe she thought that's personal, whether even if it was subconscious, and
Yep.
you went back to business
Correct.
because
Yep.
that meant business meant I'm not actually trying to go anywhere but have a business conversation with you. I just noticed something that struck me between your glasses and your earrings. It wasn't an attempt, as you would say,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Correct. That's
Interesting.
exactly right. Yep.
Okay. So you mentioned your origin story. So I don't know your
Yes.
origin story. So I like to have a fresh perspective of my guests because I feel like
Sure.
sometimes it's the same for my audience. It's like, tell me, take us back and tell us about you.
So I've been a sales trainer for about 30 years. I've done it across 6 countries and 47 states that you were kind enough to illustrate. And thank you for that, by the way.
Sure. It's an
I
impressive
normally
stat.
pay good money for those type of introductions.
Yeah.
I've done it for many companies. I've been involved with many product launches, and about 13 years ago, I had a third knee surgery. And after that knee surgery, I became addicted to opioids. I lost my house, got divorced. It led down a very rocky road. Proud to say I'm 13 years clean at this point. But
wow.
what happened, Christine, was after you become addicted and after you're labeled an addict, people don't look at you the same way ever again. So
how do they look at you? What's the experience?
They write a story in their head of what they feel an addict is or how they are. And once they write that story, I'm not going to override that story. So no matter how much I proclaim I've gone through rehab and gotten better, many people were very resistant to that and didn't view me the same way.
It's not positive.
Correct. And the book I wrote, I talk about this in the book, that
which is the new one.
Thank you.
Read
yes,
the Room.
correct.
Okay.
Yep. So I talk about in the book that this method that I use in the book was not built in a boardroom. It was built out of survival. I had to figure out a way to get back into the lives of the people that I had shoved out. And it became
your
more
credibility was shot. Your credibility was shot. Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely gone.
Well, opiate
Even
addicts.
With my parents.
Yeah. Just, that's not it's not an easy addiction for the addict or for the people around the addict, is it?
I would say it's probably harder for the people around me because, a lot of the
yeah. Sorry.
I look at a lot of the decisions I made and I thought, this is fine. But
yeah, you
everybody
were numb
else
to
who
it.
was everybody else who was thinking clearly realized it wasn't.
I just think this is so important. That's why I'm slowing you down a little bit because you're saying some really profound things that I don't want to buzz past.
Okay.
First of all, you said third knee surgery, so you're not an old man. So did you have a sports injury? How'd you hurt your knee? And it must have been kind of serious if you're the third one in, or you had a really bad surgeon. I don't know. What's the story there?
I taught the martial arts for 20 years.
Okay.
And
so you're
after
a disciplined
your
guy.
knees just wear down.
So I think that's fascinating because this just speaks to opioids and it's not a discipline thing, is it? It's like they grab you, which is the danger of it. Martial arts is a highly, highly disciplined thing. And so, so I shared before that I was in an auto accident when I was 28. And by 31, I had a spinal injury that went from chronic to acute. And this was in the late 90s, early 2000s, which was when the opioids were at its, they were coming into the world. And I was legit in severe, horrendous pain on a day-to-day basis. And the doctors were giving me the option for oxycodone in an insane amount. Insane. And I just went, I don't want to take this. Now, that doesn't make me braver than anybody else. I just didn't like feeling shit-faced, quite frankly. And I figured if I was going to hit with a hammer, I didn't want to get hit with a hammer and feel shit-faced because that was my experience and I didn't like it. Some people, their brains are wired differently. So it's just such a slippery slope. So you're this guy, very successful guy that's doing martial arts, you have some knee problems, you're doing all this work with organizations and you're killing it. And then you have the surgery, you take the opioids, and then life takes on a life of its own, if I get you.
Yeah. You get the illusion of control that you can stop at any time and you're good to go. I'm different than a lot of people though, Christine. I don't blame the opioid. I
Okay.
knew I knew what was happening. I saw the road I was going down, but you get under this self-delusion that you can control it and you could stop at any time. And then before you know it, you're at the point where I can't control this and I can't stop at any time.
Yeah.
So
Isn't
I
that the
hear
drugs a little bit, Jake? Talking, doesn't it give you that sense of like grandiose thing?
it does, but I have a real problem with people who go on and say it was the drugs that did it to me. You know, the drugs don't jump into your mouth. They
Yeah.
don't jump into your arm. You know, we're avoiding, or at least I was avoiding pain.
Okay.
And I don't mean physical pain, because by that point, the physical pain was gone. I mean the mental withdrawal pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're either strong enough to go through it
Yeah.
or you're not. And when I went through it, Christine, they didn't have all these lovely therapies. They didn't have all these beautiful rehab centers. You know,
even 13 years ago was even talking about addiction 13 years ago.
Oh, it was horrible.
So I want to take people back to that. 13 years ago, you were saying you were an addict. You were not, it was not, and recovering was not what it is now, which is there is some real respect, and being vulnerable and talking about that is a very different thing than it was even that long ago, which isn't that long ago, but it was quite different. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, Christine, I would see, like, I think it was Philip Seymour Hoffman died around that time of a drug addiction. And I remember people saying, oh, poor Philip. Oh, that's terrible. And then those same people would point the finger at me and go, bad, bad.
Yeah.
You should know better. And it was like, why do celebrities get the pass, but everyday Joes don't? And it's not like that anymore. But back 13 years ago, man, you were a pariah.
Yeah. So that had to be shocking as a human, just to not, because there's so much about about drug addiction as being an illness. Like, we don't blame somebody who gets cancer unless they smoke. Then we're like, maybe it's their fault, right? I mean, I even ask, and we all have biases, and I'll just, I think, somebody gets lung cancer. That's my first question. Lots of people die of lung cancer having never directly smoked themselves. So, but we want to make sense out of it. Like, how can this happen, right? And that gets into a blame game, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it often does.
Yeah. So how did you bridge this world from what you experienced personally and what you had to fight back to how the work you're doing now? Take us through that kind of road.
Yeah, so the rationale between the celebrity and me was really where the road started. I was trying to understand why it was so acceptable in one group of people, but in another, you were considered a lowlife and not worthy of much of anything, especially being a nationally known speaker, a consultant. I have 7 patents. I had 7 patents before I got addicted. So I wasn't like this, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was not the typical person you would have thought.
Yeah.
But
well,
anyway,
most people think that, like, even alcoholism, that they're not functioning. Most alcoholics are highly functioning people. I mean, only 15% are, not working and sitting, day to day, because you need to fund the drugs. So it's a different world. So so it's very confusing. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I noticed about, or what I decided was happening with the celebrities and me, was that they already had a stature. They already had a presence that enabled them to be loved and liked already. And so they could be more easily seen as the victim. And I'm not criticizing that at all. I can understand it's human nature. But what I had to do then was try to understand how people were seeing me. And so I had to go from trying to convince them I was better to instead listening to them and what they weren't saying verbally to understand where they were.
And
that's how I could get in touch with this other profile that they had.
Yeah. Okay.
People would say they understood, but they would slowly look away down to the left, or their knees would point towards the door as they were talking to me, which meant they were already out of the room. And I had to figure out ways to get them back with me without selling them that I was better. I had to figure out ways to prove that I was better, not just say it.
And did you start this with your family? You said this is where this began?
Yeah, I started it with my family. I had a lot of friends that were understanding. I had a lot of friends that were not. And even inside my own family, there was some divisions taking place. And whether they said it or not, you could feel them and see them. I still have some people that don't relate to me today, and that's okay.
Sure.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
But I do know the people who surround me now were people who understood that a lot better. And for me to tell my story in my book, I only gave a little bit in the book, but to me to give my story in the book now is not something you would have done 13 years ago.
It would have been a very different situation for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Now they look at you as a hero for coming through it. And back then it was you belong under a bridge.
Yeah.
And I'm not asking to be called a hero either. I was dumb to get involved with it as it is. I'm just very fortunate that I was able to come as far as I have.
Yeah. Well, and it is the recidivism rate and the addiction rate. It's hard. It's a hard battle. It is a battle. You have to do a lot of emotional work, not just withdraw from the drugs. There's a lot to that. I just think some of us, and I don't want to discount your narrative in terms of whether you blame the drugs or not. I think it's some of us are just built more for addiction than others. And I don't know, a lot of people aren't addicted to something these days because there's so much in our, if you saw me with Oreo cookies, you would understand that I'm not okay. Like, I don't put them in the house because I can't handle them, so I'll lie to myself and only eat the insides, but I'll eat all the insides. So, but I think it's interesting that I always say that people are always telling themselves a story about you. Like, they're always telling them, and you might as well get ahead of it. So just to tell you, back in the day when I would do different kinds of trainings, one of the diversity training is one of the things I would do. And I was pretty young. Again, I was in my late 20s when I started this. Now I'm from Hershey, Pennsylvania. And in my mind, I'm as white as they come. I had absolutely no diversity, and I felt like a fraud talking about diversity. But when I got more educated about it, it went way beyond race. Again, this was very early in the days when we even talked about diversity.
Yep.
So it was like primary and secondary dimensions. Like, are you in the military? What's your educational status? What's your growing up? So I started in front of rooms, instead of introducing myself, I would ask the audience to guess my primary and secondary dimensions of diversity. And no matter who I was in front of, and no matter where I went, I always got the same answers. They thought I was from Connecticut or the South. They thought I was Catholic. They thought I was married. I had all these consistent things that weren't right. Half of them were right. But I was like, something I'm putting out there is getting people to think this is who I am. And it was fascinating experiment to do that in front of rooms. So is that kind of what you're talking about, that people kind of tune into you in a certain way and you don't even realize it, right?
Yeah, and that's the first piece of my book, is the signals you put off. Whether you want to be read or not, you're being read.
All the time.
I can promise you're not as good performing your role as they are in reading your role.
Yeah, at least subconsciously. They're not necessarily conscious of it, right?
Yep. Okay. This is all unconscious.
Yeah. So do you have a background in psychology? How did you get into the psychology of this?
Yeah, I have a degree in psychology, bachelor's, mind you, but a degree in psychology from Syracuse. I have a master's certification in neurolinguistic programming, which is what Tony Robbins does. He's been our poster child for many, many moons. And I always joke that I've read so many books on social psychology. Yeah. Somebody should just give me an honorary degree.
Yeah.
Just step up and let me walk, right?
Yeah.
So I took all of those and I combined them into a theory I called neurostrategy, about the way we make decisions. I've trademarked the term, and I use it in whether I work with a corporation or individuals. I teach them about perception, conditioning, and coding, because that's how we make decisions.
Break that down for us, please.
Sure. So perception is, how do we perceive you? And more importantly, how do they perceive us? How are we conditioned to respond? And the best example I can give you is if somebody says, "Hi, how are you?" What's your response?
Well, good. Sure. Fine. Right? Great. Fuck you.
Exactly. Yeah. If you say "I love you" to somebody you love, they say "I love you too." We all have those conditioned responses.
Yeah. That's a better one. I like that one better.
We're more conditioned than we think that we are.
Yeah. It's a reflex.
We do a lot of things without correct. So if you understand what somebody's conditioned to say, you're at an advantage. And the last part is, how are we coded? We're coded to respond to fear. We're coded to respond to the fear of missing out or loss aversion, reciprocation theory, confirmation bias. We're all coded a certain way. So if we can understand perception conditioning and coding, which isn't that tough, honestly, we can really level up the way we relate to other people. And this is what I teach all my clients. When you understand those, your business development gets exponentially easier.
Because we don't even realize how much we're missing. So I look at it two ways. When I was in a neck brace years ago, and I wore 3 of them over my trials, once you're in a neck brace, you see it when somebody else is in a neck brace, but you don't notice it if you've never had that. You might go, but it doesn't resonate the same way. As I was and I couldn't turn very much. My now ex-husband and I were putting a rock wall in our driveway because we had a place we had to, and all of a sudden, all I saw were rock walls everywhere because I knew what I was looking for. But when you don't know you're looking for it, you don't see it. So that's why it's
your
not
reticular activating system kicking in.
Yeah. So if you so it sounds like you're able to give teams, salespeople, leaders, the rock walls to look for. Like you give them the language around it, and then it's not as hard to see it once you know what you're looking for. And the other metaphor I like is, when you're doing the crossword, the word searches, if I know what words are in the puzzle, they're a lot easier to find.
Oh, yeah.
Than if I don't know the words. So you're just giving them the words to the puzzle, right?
And you couldn't be more correct. I even put in the book, once you see the things I'm pointing out in the book, you will never unsee them.
Yeah. Yeah, your awareness is up.
Everybody you talk to.
Yeah.
But the book walks you through what to look for and how to respond to those things. And it's amazing. When I teach sales teams this or founders this, they're amazed at how much different their communication becomes.
Sure, because their awareness is up and they're meeting people where they are.
Correct.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. I think it's very cool that you wanted to solve your own problem and figure it out, and then you're magnifying this to help others maybe not solve the exact same problem with their credibility from recovering from an addiction, but we're all trying to build credibility in the room to influence, right?
Yeah, and Christine, the book talks about the fact that this isn't just in the boardroom. This is in your relationships too. It's amazing how we miss signals and triggers from the person we spend the most time with. And before we know it, we're 3 years down a marriage path and we're thinking, what the hell happened? You're not the same person I married.
Yeah. And you're not.
Typically they're not. Right.
Well, you're not, and you're not supposed to be, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. But we don't look for that we especially don't look for it in our closest relationships, do we?
No, we don't. But that's what's made my marriage so great. I got divorced, but I've been remarried for 8 years. And it's just, we're at a whole different level because we notice the things all the time. We rarely get into arguments because we typically address things as they hit.
Okay, now you're just being obnoxious. I'm just kidding.
I didn't say we don't disagree. I just said we don't get into arguments.
Isn't that? But so this is how you take care of a relationship, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Is because I believe that people just want to feel seen, heard, and understood. When you notice what your partner isn't saying by what their bodies are saying, what their response is, it's such a gift. It's such a gift to be noticed, isn't it?
Yeah. I will often say to my wife, if I say something and I see her I watch for the smallest body movements and I'll say, that didn't hit right.
Right.
What didn't hit right for you? Because I want to know right away. I need to get better. And in my first marriage, I wasn't anywhere like this.
That's why you said this was the best thing that ever happened to you, even though it was the worst thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah, at the time, when you're laying there going through withdrawal and everything else, you just want the world to end. But now I look back on it and I think, God, if none of that happened,
you wouldn't have this kind of connection. Yeah. It is so I think, but I just think that's, you can read the 5 languages of love, and it's all about meeting, that book, Jake?
Yep, I do.
So it's a great book for those listeners, but it gives categories of how people like to be loved, because we tend to love the way we want to be loved. We're really supposed to love the person the way they want to be loved. It's
Yeah.
like it's the platinum rule. And I say this in business too, but you're giving people the keys on how to meet people and find the way they want to be loved. Because see, that's a love letter to me. I want to get better. Something you didn't do didn't land. Well, something I said didn't land on you. That's like the ultimate act of love when you're seeking to understand that. I think that's really amazing.
Well, I think the fact that when I was in recovery, you get used to apologizing and saying you're wrong. So once you do that so many times, it's easy to go back to your marriage and just go, must have messed that up. What did I do
As
wrong?
someone in my earlier life who, there's this, we could lay me down for this, but I had a hard time apologizing. I didn't like to be wrong because it
Well,
just
of
felt like
course not.
it was just too much of my childhood shit. But it's so freeing now to be
Oh, yeah.
wrong. It is like the most, to just go, I'm wrong. It's just, it feels so good, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story. When my wife brings two daughters to the family, and I've got a daughter and a son from my previous marriage. And one day, my wife and I were, just having a discussion, and one of my stepdaughters goes, I don't like what you said there. And I
Okay.
said to her, not only do I appreciate you saying it, but I'm not going to be perfect all the time. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. She looked at me, she goes, that's not how I expected this to go.
Wow.
And she said that because her biological father is one that would have thrown a
Argue.
tantrum.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? I'm never going to be perfect. This was one of those moments.
Yeah. But I'm
Appreciate you
sorry.
catching me. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Hey.
thank you for telling me.
Yeah.
So it's just so the carefulness we have. I think there's so many layers to what the work you're doing, because I see people as so afraid of conflict and
Yeah.
addressing things that happen. We sent out a marketing newsletter and it had a misspelling on it. I'm not going to see it. My team usually sees it. I used to get upset, because I felt dumb if there was a mistake. Somebody I played tennis with, because I'm your friend, she sent me a screenshot and I said, thank you. Thank you. What's wrong with telling somebody that? I guess because of that defensiveness, we worry, but it's just like life doesn't have to be as hard as we think it is, right? Like people could have panicked in your situation with the woman in the earrings and the glasses. They would have panicked potentially.
Yeah.
But you went, nope, it's not a big deal, right?
Well, and the funny thing is, we think about how I have a podcast as well, and we just did this topic of why people stay in a crappy situation, even though there's better situations out there. And a big piece of that, I firmly believe, is that it's hard to admit you were wrong for making the original decision. How many people stay in a marriage because they're like, I didn't make the wrong decision. This will eventually work out. Chances are it's not gonna.
Yeah. Or we want to make it right. We're determined to make it right. Yeah. When I was in the hospital one time, when I was in my worst of my neck injury, I had a secondary infection, and I've told this story before.
Geez.
Yeah, it was, health issues. Look, what happened to you? Like, it's not often the health issue. It's the byproduct of the thing that when you're trying to get the solution that'll bite you. And
For sure.
so I was in with an infection. And so I'm agitated. It's 10 o'clock at night. I have neck pain out the wazoo. I'm not feeling well. So I start walking the hallway and I'm pushing my IV cart. It wasn't a pretty moment. Down the hallway, walking around, and someone comes down the hall and we run into each other. It's 10 o'clock at night in the hospital, and we knew each other. Like, you expect to run into people at the grocery store, but not in the hospital, right?
Yeah.
So she was a former client of mine. I had worked as a counselor at an EAP. Longer story, tragic situation I helped counsel her family through. When we saw each other, we went back to her. I often think hotel room, because it's so staggering. We were in the hospital, and she was being hospitalized because she had a rectal tumor, and she had to decide surgery or cancer. Now I'm going back 25, 30 years now. And so 5 days of chemo, they put her in the hospital for round one. So she's on the IV cart. I'm on and so we start exchanging stories, but she says to me, I say, what's going on with you? She tells me her story. She goes, first round of chemo, I'll have more coming, but I'll be okay. And I go, well, I have this neck thing, blah, blah, blah. And she looks at me at the end of it. She goes, I'm just glad I don't have what you have. And I went, hold on. Hold on. I have a serious spinal injury. Not for sissies, mind you, but not life-threatening. life
Yeah.
altering. Hers was like, this could take her out. And I remember, and it was such a profound moment because I was like, how can you say that when this could take you out? And I realized that's how hard change is. It's
Yeah.
so hard to change because what's known is so much less scary than the unknown. It's just, right?
Yes. I heard a saying once when I was younger, and I truly believe it, that if you got together with 20 friends and you all tossed your problems in a
Yeah.
pile in the middle of the room, you'd take yours back.
Absolutely, because you're familiar with it. So,
Yeah.
so this is part of your work, though, I believe, if I
It
get
is.
what you're saying, because
Yep.
we will avoid something because we're uncomfortable with it rather than see it, address it, and just call it out, right?
Yes. Correct.
And when you give yourself the keys to the kingdom, you make your life a lot simpler if you just know what to look for and how to do it, which is what you help people with.
Exactly. Yep. And the book goes through it step by step. It does exercises. It gives you things that you can do to get better. It gives you daily things you can do to get better at noticing things.
Love it.
Noticing the way people react and respond and how to do reframes. Because to me, if you learn how to reframe, your life just gets 1,000 times easier.
Well,
so the book goes into that.
I think that's so important. I want to find out where we can find the book, but let's define what a reframe is. Like, how do you define what is that?
So a reframe is when you respond to a direction a person is going, but you give them an alternate road to take. So let me give you an example. Let's take the example of your friend with the cancer. If a doctor says to you, listen, you have cancer and there's a 40% mortality rate, that's the same message as you have cancer, but you have a 60% survival rate.
Yeah.
That's a reframe.
Yeah.
And if we learn how to reframe things with people, it's amazing how much different it goes. And the entire audience can think about this, because how many times in your life did somebody say something to you and you go, I never thought about it like that.
Right.
And all of a sudden your mind was changed.
Yeah.
That's the power of a reframe.
Well, even the reframe you did with your stepdaughter, which was not just I'm sorry, and I want to prepare you that I'm human and I'm probably going to fuck up again. So, so brace yourself, but you can tell me was part of the reframe you gave her, right? Not,
Correct.
I'm going to yell at you. I'm giving you permission because expect this to happen again because I'm not perfect.
Correct. And one of the biggest reframes that I've done is I'm 59. And, you know, as you get that addict mentality, even though I've been clean for 13 years, you still have those little demons that run around your head and you think 59, you're too old to start something new. And my reframe was 59. Finally, I'm prepared to do something new.
Gotcha.
And it's amazing how much that can change your perspective, because reframes to me are as internal as they are external.
What's the adage? It's not just what's not what happens to you in your life. It's what you say to yourself about what happens to you in your life. So the book and your work is about how you reframe with other people, but also how you reframe with yourself.
Yep. And I give some great examples on how to reframe your own inner dialogue. And I give some great examples on things that I've done and coached over the years. And I give real life stories that I've gone through on reframes I've done that have changed the way other people think about things.
That's cool. So they can practice even through your examples. Yeah.
Correct. I give them 10 things they can do each day to try to practice reframing and understanding how to do it.
So very practical, very concrete. Yeah. It's hard when you're not. I play tennis with a woman who is the kindest, so great, a great tennis player. And she talks to herself so negatively. And I said you tell me if this is what you teach people. I go, anything you are about to say to yourself, I require you to say out loud to me instead. So she hit a shot and I could hear, I go, do I suck? Is that what you want to say to me? Because that's what she was saying to herself. She goes, that was helpful exercise to have to say it to you instead of to myself. I go, would you talk to me that way? There's no way you would talk to me that way. You will only talk to yourself that way. So
Christine, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really
I appreciate that.
When you get people to voice it, they give it a body.
Yeah.
And when they have to hear it versus just internalize it, it gives it a whole new meaning.
Yeah.
So that was brilliant on your part.
Well, I just wanted to say, I could see how, selfishly, I wanted to play good tennis. If I make it about me, that's not my primary motivation. But as a partner, I want her to feel good about not only who she is as a person, but as a player. So how could I help her is what I was thinking. And I'm like,
Yeah.
she'd never say that to me. So reframing is such an important skill. And my dad used to say ad nauseum, a negative attitude is a down payment on defeat. So he was
I like that.
constantly, so positive attitude has helped me navigate a lot of situations, but it's taken practice. It doesn't just happen necessarily. You got to practice your way to that, right?
You do. And I was just on a client call literally right before this podcast. And she's like, I wasn't prepared and I suck and I have a negative attitude. And she goes, I'm going to have to reschedule because I'm not prepared. I said, it sounds to me like you're concerned about the quality of your work and you want to make sure our sessions matter more. She's like, yeah, I guess I do. But it's just that reframe that can make all the difference in the world. I really think they should teach it in high school.
Well, this is an emotional intelligence skill, isn't it?
It sure is.
It's what it's recognizing the story below the surface, being able to name it and put it above the surface so that we can either own it if it's good, or we can change it or tweak it. So I think it's really incredible and important work that you're doing. So
thank you.
So you are back on the speaking tour, from what I understand.
Yes. Yep.
And so who's your target audience? Who do you go and speak to? Is it leaders? Is it salespeople?
Solopreneurs, founders, people who suffer with the, imposter syndrome or the I'm too old. And more importantly, I tell my addiction story because I want people to understand whatever you're going through, I've been there.
Yeah.
You can get through it.
Yeah.
It sucks. It's going to take time, but you'll get through it.
Yeah.
And God forbid you learn something from it, you're even better off than you were before.
Well, that's part of the reframing, right? It's part of recognizing that life was gonna, as people would say in my accident, did you sue? Well, that's not gonna help me get my life back.
Right.
That's not,
and
that's a longer story. But we have this magical thinking. It really is just what we do with those lessons and how we navigate that. But I like that you teach it on both sides, how to read other people as well as how to read yourself to make that impact so that you can influence your personal and professional life. So where can people find you, Jake?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Jake Stahl, the CEO of Orchestrate. So there's 1,000 Jake Stahls. S-T-A-H-L. Yep. There's 1,000 Jake Stahls on LinkedIn. So I'm the one that's the CEO of Orchestrate. You can listen to my podcast, Own the Room with Jake Stahl. That's on Spotify and
Newly
Apple.
named Own the Room.
Newly named, right? Newly reframed.
Reframed. I like that. Yes.
You can read my newsletter on LinkedIn. That's also called Own the Room. If you want to follow me on social media, I go by Jake the Mind Mechanic. That's my handle on social media. And please, you can gladly buy my new book on Amazon. It's on Kindle, paperback, and hardcover. It's called Own the Room: How to Communicate to Be Seen, Heard, and Respected.
Love it. Well, Jake, thank you so much
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and for listening to my stories and how they relate to your story. I appreciate that.
I admire what you have done, Christine. You've come back from something I think many people would have used as an excuse to not continue. So I admire what happened with you and how you handled it.
Well, I appreciate that. I just was determined not to sit still. So it just was not in my nature, but it does take some perseverance. And listen, we've all have our stories, right? We all have something. So, but go get Jake's book, Own the Room, listen to his podcast. I think you've got a lot of really practical things for people to learn from you. So
thank you.
I look forward to, maybe we'll talk again. Let's do that. I'd love that.
I would love that.
So, all right. Well, thank you everyone and thanks Jake for being here. Go find Jake on LinkedIn. That's Jake Stahl, S-T-A-H-L, the founder of Orchestrate. And thanks for joining us on Shine a Light. Thanks, Jake.